Professional wrestling is built on the story of hope. It's kind of a faith thing in the sense of hoping that the wrestler you like gets that big push, and for the most part, that excitement grows and grows until the prophecy is fulfilled, but then from out of nowhere, that emotion stabilizes, and you're left thinking about the high that the story brought. Wrestling at its core is good and bad, the story of evil nearly prevailing before good comes in and overpowers with the entire crowd by their side and ends the reign of dominance once and for all. Anytime wrestling is deviated away from this simple story, it's met with skepticism because it's a matter of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Movies and shows are built on this idea, and you can deviate away from it, but it's tough. And there's a reason why it's rare to see face versus face or heel versus heel storylines. Austin and Rock is one that was face versus face, but ended up leading to Austin's heel turn, of course. Punk and Cena was at one point face versus face, but it feels like the companies always struggle to keep this a consistent thing because sometimes the fans full on choose one over the other, and it gets complicated. But it's possible. The babyface, a good guy with the traits that are admirable, honorable, and courageous. Sometimes they have too much courage for their own good, but at the end of the day, they follow a strong moral compass. The face role is much tougher to master than a heel because you have to use these set traits. The only way to stand out is your own performance with it. Hogan, Cena, and Rhodes have a lot of similarities when it comes to being the face, but deep down inside, at the core, each of the three men are different from each other. And there's a reason why I'm explaining this, because a babyface and the title chains are synonymous. Hulk Hogan is straight up like a classic superhero. The guy is super honorable and is never caught doing something that would go against his character. Well, actually, he kind of did, but a lot of the kids didn't notice. While Cena is very similar in that regard, the difference here is that John Cena will often bring a sense of confidence that almost borders on arrogance, especially if we're talking about John Cena from 2011 onwards, because you couldn't say the same for the previous version of him. And Cody Rhodes is different in the sense of being somebody whose confidence isn't always consistent. And while he's almost a dominant champion, that strong outlier in this regard as his character traits, that wavering confidence helps him look weaker and beatable to his opponent. Three men are similar but still different. Regardless of those differences, they follow a code that allows for them to be a babyface. Stone Cold Steve Austin is a strong outlier in this regard, as his character traits would make him a heel in the old era, and trait-wise, technically a heel today, although WWE themselves would know to not make him a heel. I don't know, maybe Triple H would mess it up, who knows. These four men had the crowd behind them in crazy ways during their eras. Just want to mention The Rock as well. We didn't mention him originally in the video, but it's very important to mention The Rock because similar to Austin, he was an outlier babyface. He wasn't the traditional babyface. It was more in line with the Attitude Era. He was doing things a bit differently, and it felt like they redefined what it was to be a babyface. And more often than not, they'd find themselves losing the title they worked so hard to hold. And in that moment, you remember the high that the journey to the title brought. It's a simple answer to that. You're invested in the movies from the beginning because of the character. As the character grows and becomes more identifiable, you find yourself immersed into their world and hoping that it would all work out for them. If a movie started with the conclusion, there's almost no reason to watch the damn thing. You might as well search an image of the ending and move on. One thing I've often seen throughout the years is fans complaining about a title reign. Sure, it's sometimes on WWE, but the journey to get to the title is mostly better than post-title win. I almost believe that movie sequels suck because the first movie brings novelty. No matter what the second movie does, it doesn't bring that, and from the beginning of movie number 2, it's at a huge disadvantage. That's why fans turn on these guys. Stone Cold is an anomaly, and a part of that is because of how fast his stories went by. This guy won the title for the first time in 1998 and retired in 2003. In that time, his longest title reign was his last one, and it was 5 months, but as a heel. And the thing about Stone Cold is that his greatest fanfare wasn't during his rise, it was during his main event run. And just to add to Steve Austin, one thing that gave him a huge advantage when compared to these champions is the fact that despite him being champion, it felt like there was another chase in addition, with Vince McMahon constantly throwing obstacles in his way, and it felt like the big story at that point was how Austin was gonna end this Vince thing once and for all. You guys remember the Daniel Ryan Yes story. There was emotion and passion behind it, so much so that you actually believed there was a chance that this guy would get shafted and silenced. Kofi Mania. That story was magical because of Kofi Kingston alone. The guy went through hell in the last 10 years, and naturally, this story should be yet another shortcoming for him, but even then, WWE booked the story tremendously to get everyone invested in believing that Kofi had a chance. I'd say most of us guessed that he'd win the belt, but it wasn't certain. The anticipation, the doubts, the actual match itself. That story is a prime example of the chase being better, because once the magic of WrestleMania 35 waned off, you're left with a title reign that was never going to match the story that led to the win, and you remember that Kofi Kingston wasn't a perennial main eventer, and that WWE isn't going to try so hard to keep him in that role. And it didn't match the story. Similarly was Jeff Hardy's rise. That one had some crazy magic to it because Jeff Hardy had the fanfare, but not the backing of the guys in the back. And being a natural underdog, Hardy shined the brightest he had ever been in his career. We don't need to mention his title reigns. Nobody nobody bothers to talk about them, and whenever you hear about Hardy's push, it's about the story leading to the win. You see these segments weekly where the momentum would swing in or away from Hardy's favor, making you doubt or believe that he would win the title, and the follow-up is almost never as good because either they're incapable, the story's too magical for its own good, or because the person is champion. You don't expect different things for their character afterwards. And I just want to mention this with Jeff Hardy. His situation and circumstances are way different than the others, but I wanted to mention him because of the journey. The reason why I say Hardy's situation is entirely different is because we don't really know the extent of what a full Jeff Hardy push is, because WWE was always scared to commit because of his issues outside the ring, but I don't personally believe that he would face the same issues that Bryan and Kofi Kingston would, honestly. And another thing to mention is Sting in 1997. Now, the build to Starrcade 97 was absolutely incredible, one of the greatest builds in professional wrestling history. People still talk about that build to this very day. That tells you all you need to know about it. And there was this great chase with Sting going after the title, this and that. And obviously a part of it is because the NWO was a plague upon WCW. The title was an important piece in reclaiming back the glory of WCW. He wins the title, they let it go. And he had a compelling story, he could have gone from there. But again, the excitement of that build wasn't going to be matched. And the worst part with WCW, it felt like they didn't try. It's very common for fans to lose interest in a champion. John Cena after WrestleMania 21 became more predictable, and that led to some of the fans resenting him. You wouldn't catch me of all people hating on John Cena. I was a proud soldier of the chain gang until the day I died. Barring this 1 month in 2010, but we don't want to talk about it. But when I look back on it, I understand why fans turned on him, because WWE stopped trying hard with the name John Cena. They just wanted him to be like Hulk Hogan, and that's a huge issue, because the elements of surprise and novelty in his rise were nowhere to be found in his run. The opposite is said for Stone Cold, because he had different type of rivals. A unique idea having an authority figure outright despise their champion. Then you add the Zambonis, the cars getting destroyed. Every week was something new and different. You don't even think about WrestleMania 14 afterwards. And when you do, you think about it as the time Stone Cold finally arrived. Well, that wouldn't be sustainable in this day and age. It worked tremendously for Stone Cold, and that's why he's one of the only exceptions. And even then, some people were complaining about 1998 Stone Cold. You get this crazy high in the weekly and you still twiddle your fingers complaining about fuck all. Seriously? Sometimes I do wonder what people actually want, but it somewhat terrifies me, because if it isn't Austin and Rock in the year of 1998, what do you actually want? In the modern day, the Cody Rhodes story was special. Ever since his return to WWE, Cody's return brought excitement and novelty. His journey to WrestleMania 40 will be something that will never be topped in his career, in most careers, and that's because WWE perfectly placed obstacles and struggles in the road to the title win. The idea of him losing a second main event to Roman Reigns, the final boss element making things incredibly hard for Rhodes, but since then, nothing has ever matched the excitement and hype that WrestleMania 40 brought. The fans chanting, "We want Cody," bloodline rules, and sometimes no matter what you do, you can't top the journey to get to the mountain. Can you write a compelling title reign? Of course, but when you see Rhodes win, there's nothing special there. And that's why I hoped CM Punk would face him at WrestleMania, because when they teased the story, it brought a bit of that feeling, because in storyline, you could tell that Rhodes was a bit exhausted and slowly losing himself during his time as champion. Guys such as AJ Styles and Kevin Owens, who brought out the worst in him. They were trying to pull strings and get him to become an entirely different animal. That kind of stuff. And they do have an opportunity now with Cody, seeing as he got himself disqualified on SmackDown, where they could tell a different story with his title reign, but we'll see. I just want to add to this that WWE had a great opportunity this year to make you forget about WrestleMania 40, and initially they did. I honestly thought they did a decent job of setting up John Cena as this big opponent along with The Rock and this obstacles in WrestleMania 41, but the actual execution left a lot to be desired. So because of that, in some ways, you still hear about WrestleMania 40 to this day, and it was a magnificent build. I'm always going to talk about it, but Rhodes obviously needs stuff to bring a level of excitement we hadn't seen in a long time. And I'm not obviously saying that they're going to top WrestleMania 40, but it feels like they don't even try their best to bring him programs and stories to make you forget about WrestleMania 40, if you get what I'm saying. John Cena, after winning the title, did have compelling stories. The Edge story, that brought a lot out of both and pushed them to the limit in the character and wrestling aspects. So it's possible to do well after a title reign, but it requires greater stories. While Cena did lose some of that crowd support after that title reign, you can't say that he didn't have more compelling or exciting stories after winning the title. You can't say the same for others. Daniel Bryan won, did the yes thing, and his title reign ended prematurely. It almost feels like a movie overstaying its welcome. In some ways, the underdog turns heel when they win the title, because they no longer represent the identity that they fought with for their entire career. The hunter becomes the hunted, basically. Jeff Hardy certainly didn't lose it, but seeing Kofi Kingston win match after match in 2019 did make you see his character a bit differently. It's a struggle to book the title reign follow-up, but it has been done. Even if Bryan didn't suffer that injury in May of 2014, I doubt that the title reign would have gone well, because for WWE, it's always hard for them to overcome the whole underdog thing. They could do an underdog title reign and all that, but they're not that compelling for the most part. Batista's first title reign was so good because he wasn't even the underdog heading into his title match. He came in with confidence, won the title, and while he did struggle with Triple H, it built his character. He beat Triple H in 3 different ways, then went to SmackDown where he dealt with different kind of shenanigans. That's how you book a run. And Batista morphed his character. He wasn't stuck living with the success of WrestleMania 21, which couldn't be said for Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan at the time. His run was good, that as time went on, you feel like Batista's win at WrestleMania 21 was eons ago as opposed to being the reason why he won the title in the past. So it's possible to do it. Just a matter of having the character naturally evolve and deal with different situations that don't feel like a callback to the previous stories, although I do believe that if Kofi's run was booked in a way where he was fighting desperately to keep the title, and I like the title reign a little bit more than others, but I could see why some people didn't like it. It's understandable why promotions book heels as the top champions because the chase is always better for the most part. The heel is easy to have him win. He cheats, he runs away, he does this stuff. There's a reason why Roman Reigns' title reign was so long. It's because they found a winning method and they decided to exploit it until they found a suitable person to beat him and make the result satisfying. It's understandable. It's easy to see why they book these heels to win matches all the time. The chase is always better, but it doesn't have to be because title reigns are a chance to explore characters and stories in a different way. It's certainly possible to overcome the chase, but that requires great talent and of course a great arc. Alright, what do you guys think about title chases being better? Please comment down below, and that's for this video. Make sure you hit the crossroads on the like button and perhaps the AA on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.